All right. So, if I'm not audible, let me know. Otherwise, I think we can begin the class. So everybody just comfortably like sit on your mats and keep the back and neck straight. And whenever you feel ready, just gently close your eyes. Remove any specs, glasses that you're wearing. Then you can just gently close your eyes. And start observing your breath. Just watching the natural flow of the breath. Don't change your breathing. And be aligned in your posture. Make sure that your body is comfortable and relaxed. Slowly begin to deepen the breath. Slow, long, deep inhalations. Slow, long, and deep exhalations. We'll chant Om one time, followed by the Shanti mantra. Inhale deeply for Om. Sarve bhavantu sarve santu naraha sarve bhadrani pashyantu ma kaschit dukhabhat kaschit dukhabhat. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Just feel the vibrations. Join the palms together in front of the chest and rub the palms together. Place them on the ice. Very slowly while blinking and mathematical smile. Namaste. Let us begin today's session. This is your yoga philosophy class, right? So in the previous classes, we have already discussed what philosophy is, and we have also talked about, the meaning of yoga. And today we are going to, dive a little bit deeper into the, into setting up the foundation for this entire yoga philosophy. So we're just going to very deeply discuss, the aims and the objectives of yoga. Like when you are studying yoga philosophy, what is the main thing that we're focusing on? First thing we are going to talk about that, and then we're going to talk about the other, things, the objectives that are going to also be there. But aim is generally only one, right? And aim of this entire practice, the entire process of yoga, your asanas, your pranayama, meditation, all of these things, these are processes of yoga. And the main aim when you are doing these things, and that is on your mind, that is being free from all of your sufferings, right? So when you are practicing yoga, you are not looking merely for, curing your body of any ailment that you are facing, or if you are undergoing some mental stress or some mental disorder, you are not looking to cure that when you are doing yoga, right? These are all byproducts of the process. As I start practicing asanas and start connecting with myself more, I will recognize that, okay, this is how I feel, right? I get more in connection with myself. And when I do this thing, I eliminate some form of suffering which came when, I was not connected with myself, right? So these are byproducts. When you will get connected with yourself through the process of yoga, these things are going to happen. You practice asana, your body is bound to become healthy, right? You will practice pranayama, your, so many things in the body change as, we change or alter the breath, right? We work on the breathing process, we direct the breathing process in a certain manner, right? So all of these things are byproducts. But the main aim is to get free from all of your suffering. Why get free of one suffering if something has the potential to free you from all your sufferings, right? If you would have just wanted to gain flexibility, you could have joined, a gymnastics class. If you just wanted to work on your breathing, maybe you would have, opted to play some musical instrument, especially the ones, which require a lot of work on your breathing. But you are not aiming for the parts, right? You are aiming for a holistic approach when you are doing a practice such as yoga, right? So it's very important in the beginning only to make it very clear that you are not practicing yoga so that you can improve your flexibility. It is a byproduct, right? It is bound to happen, right? So you are aiming to get free from all the sufferings that are there, and to, uh, experience that peace and harmony within, right? So each and every time you are doing any practice of yoga, be it your asana practice, if you are in your meditation practice, right? Set that intention for yourself that no, I'm not just aiming for this little thing. I'm aiming for something really huge. And the process is so beautiful that when you walk on the path of yoga, you are bound to achieve these things. You are bound to, get healthier, get happier. All of these things are going to come. right? But you don't have to get attached to them, right? So set that intention. You are aiming for a very high goal when it comes to yoga, right? Then if we talk of the objectives, the other things that are happening. So when you start practicing yoga, this is the one of the first things that you will see. Even if you only go for asana practice, you will start seeing this. There is some amount of physical and mental cleansing that is taking place, right? If you just go for physical practices like Shatkarma and Asana, you will see Shatkarma, deeply cleanses the body, right? There's a set of practices which helps you to cleanse the body. So it's helping you in cleaning the body and also working on cleaning the mind, right? Usually our mind is so out of control, but when we practice, the mind instructs the body to breathe in a certain way, to move in a certain way, right? So by default of the practice, the mind also gets engaged, right? Because you have to keep the focus on the breathing a lot, especially in styles like Ashtang Vinyas and Vinyas flow. You will see the breath is associated with a particular movement. So one breath and one movement. So the mind is constantly engaged and in touch with the body, in touch with the breathing. So the mind, which has this destructive tendency to run away here and there, you will see that it starts getting anchored to something. Even during the practice of asana, now when you practice asana, you will be able to keep the mind in your practice. It will happen with time, of course, but that space or time that the mind usually had to run away to uh, multiply the negative thought process, now somewhere it is being controlled and it is being given a direction, right? So one of the first few things that start happening is your mental and physical cleansing. It happens like on very subtle levels also and on a gross level also. There is a lot of cleansing that begins to take place in your body, in your mind, right? Then if we see the main one of the other objectives that is achieved when you practice the process of yoga is you are directed to this place of self connection, like I was talking. You start attaining harmony on the body level, right? And it will be in sync with the mind, and it will be in sync with something which is much more subtle, right? But the true nature, right? The true thing that you are trying to achieve. There is some, so normally, body, mind, and soul is used, but not necessarily you believe in the concept of a soul, right? There's some energy within you, right? Which is, which has its own qualities, right? And if the mind and the body are not in sync with those qualities, there is a lot of disruption that is caused, right? So many times we just face an internal conflict when the body and the mind are not in sync. We still face so much conflict within ourselves, right? If we are doing something we don't believe in, do you feel happy about it? You don't, right? So as you go through the process of yoga, you will see because of such deep cleansing, there is some harmony and some balance that is being established on like not only the physical level but deeper levels, and all the levels are now trying to match up. Whatever you are thinking, you are actually able to work on that or act according to that, right? So there is so much harmony that is caused because of the process of you. It's the nature of the practice, right? Then last thing that we have is, of course, the uh, harmony and the self-realization. So that is again your aim only, but it comes as a part of an objective also. There is this process, leads you to a place where, once there is cleansing, then there is some, balance that is now getting established. And because of that balance, again, you are going into a state where you are going to deeply connect with your own self, right? And, uh, you know, that is very simply understood what self-realization is. We are very disconnected from our own selves. We are not disconnected from the world anymore. The fact that you can sit over here and take a live Zoom class means that we are connected. You know, I and you guys are connected, right, to me, right, through this video call, right? But we are disconnected from ourselves, right? So yoga is that process which will, give you ways, which will give you the tools to actually form that connection with yourself, the one that you are looking for when you are connecting to someone external is actually, attained through the connection that you feel with your own self, right? So yoga gives you the tools to, make better connection with yourself, to establish a Wi-Fi connection with it, right? So that's the beauty of the process of yoga. So let's today our main topic of discussion. So those were the aims and objectives that you keep in mind. So every time you step into any class of yoga, be very aware and set your intention accordingly, because whatever you're practicing, it has great scope, right? Whatever you are looking for when you came into the practice of yoga, it has the scope of fulfillment, right? But if you aim small, then you will be able to achieve small, right? If you aim for just physical wealth, right, being established in this physical world, all of those things will come. You don't have to worry about it. But then you will limit yourself. So why limit yourself? Go for higher aim. Go for liberation from all your suffering. It's not just one or two merely, right? So today, main topic of discussion that we have is, the origin of yoga. So before I begin with that, are there any doubts from anyone?
No doubts.
All right.
No doubts, ma'am.
Sorry? No doubt. Okay. All right. Yeah. So today we are going to talk about the origin of yoga. Now we understood the meaning of philosophy, the meaning of yoga, and even the aims and objectives. So now we need to, just to set a little bit base for our own selves, right? We need to understand why, this practice came into existence. Something else could have come into existence, right? Practices of Ayurveda already existed. But even then, yoga came into existence. So there must be some reason that, Ayurveda wasn't able to fulfill that a separate, totally separate process or, school was required to, attain something else, right? So the origin of yoga, when we talk about it, there are mostly two reasons overall that we see led to this origin, right? So first thing is the psychological reason, right? One is your psychological and other is mythological. So your philosophy classes, they are going to be full of different stories, right? So by default, yoga has this very spiritual touch to it, and hence, it's not surprising to see that one of the reasons or one of the points of origination of yoga is considered to be a very mythological perspective, right? So, and the other one is the psychological one, where we as human beings, why did we feel this, right? So, two thoughts, right? Two ways in which you can say yoga originated. One was because of our own selves. We realized something about our own selves and our own lives, right? And that led to the origination. So that's your psychological. And then, of course, the spiritual aspect, or the broader picture, is covered in the mythological aspect. And even if you don't believe in any god or any kind of mythology, you can just take them as really fascinating stories, and just hear them out whenever I cue in a story, just to make you understand something that I'm trying to explain. Just allow, keep yourself open to the stories, right? And not necessarily that they will make much sense to us, right? Because again, I'm using the word story, right? So not necessary that each and every time it's going to fit the logical mind perfectly, but yeah, it has its own tinge of um, I would say beauty to it, right? So let's come to the psychological reasons first, right? So as human beings, our mind, this has been very widely discussed, especially in the modern world, right? The human mind, it has this tendency to seek uh, pleasure, right? And not only that, so this is quite obvious that we want to seek pleasure, right? Want to run after happiness. Everybody wants to be happy, right? But at the same time, along with this comes attached the other side, where not only do we want happiness, we also want to eliminate the suffering, right? We want to be free from the sorrow. So we want to reduce the pain as much as possible and enhance the happiness as much as possible, right? So this is the human mind, right? It is the general tendency of the human mind to want this thing. So first reason under psychological reason. So psychological reason is also further subdivided into two reasons. So one of them is sukha pravatti. This directly means enhancement of happiness. SUKHA PRAVRITTI, Sukha Pravritti. And attached with it is the other side, which is Dukha Nivritti. So elimination of suffering. DUKHA, Dukha Nivritti. NIVRITTI. Right? So the first subcategory of the psychological reason is this, where, the mind generally is trained to be in this way, right? And, you know, uh, people who initially delved into philosophy, subjects like philosophy, philosophy wasn't a subject back then. It was just, some people having this love for knowledge, right? So they were trying to understand everything around them. So, when philosophers, ancient times, philosophers, or even I can say yogis, yogis who had deep realization, they, came to this one single point. You will see that all the yogis, when they were, on their research, they came to this one conclusion, and that conclusion was that suffering is a reality of life, right? And it is a constant part of it, right? So it's not like you can, you know work on it and easily get rid of it. It's a phase. It is a constant reality of life that suffering is going to exist. So somehow, it was seen that suffering was, I can say, permanent when it comes to life, and at the same time the happiness that we experienced, it was, one can say, temporary, because it easily went away, right? So, and suffering came again and again, right? So, the yogis, they came to this one point of conclusion, right? That suffering is a reality. And even Siddhartha Gautam, very famously known as Buddha, when he went into very deep meditation, before that, he had a set of instances where he got this deep realization how, common, or how real the suffering is. It's a reality of life. You cannot escape. You might want to, but you cannot. Suffering is there, right? And each and every moment of happiness that we experience, it was seen that it is quite temporary. It is there, no doubt, but it is quite temporary. So, all of these yogis and these philosophers, they wanted to find a permanent source of happiness, something that was much more permanent, something that, could give a wider, like, uh, or I can say a deeper answer to that suffering, something that can, deeply eliminate the suffering, right? So they were looking for something which could be much more permanent than the, temporary happiness that we experience in life. And so the yogis and the philosophers, they tried to understand the nature of the suffering, why this suffering exists, and they deeply analyzed the suffering. And when they deeply analyzed the suffering, they were able to reach a point where they could figure out a way to, eliminate this, right? So they strongly believe that if there is suffering, there is also going to be a way out of it, right? Like I told you, the sorrow and the happiness, how, they complete an entire chain. If you are in sorrow, then happiness comes in. Then again, because of your craving nature, the sorrow is bound to come. Because once that happiness is taken away from you, you will again, go in that dip of sorrow, and you would crave that happiness. So in that same way, like, you see this cycle where happiness and sorrow, or you see this thing about happiness and sorrow, that they are two sides of the same coin. In that same way, if there is suffering, the yogis, they knew that there was a way to eliminate this suffering, and the way in which the suffering could be eliminated would lead to the enhancement of the happiness which we are looking for, a permanent source, right? Or we can say a blissful state that we are looking for. So this, their deep analysis into this entire reality of life led them to a point where, they came up or found a way which could eliminate these things, which would naturally lead to the upliftment of the happiness, and it would naturally lead to the eradication of the sorrow, right? So this entire cycle, it got completed when the process of yoga came in, because Ayurveda mostly works on establishing the physical health, and it gives a lot of treatments, a lot of therapeutic ways to navigate through the diseases of the body. But it was also seen that there were other hindrances that human beings were facing, right? Like, a mental distress or emotional distress that we were facing, right? Very simply understood. So yoga came as a holistic practice, right? To enhance the level of happiness, right? And when we talk of sufferings, there are three forms of sufferings that are given. So today, we'll do a fun thing, right? Yesterday I told you to, observe your actions when I explain the meaning of yoga till today, right? And today, new activity for you is that I'm telling you the three types of sorrows and sufferings that exist, and it is believed that all of your sorrows and sufferings can uh, be categorized in either one of these. So there are three categories. There are three types of sorrows that are overall discussed when we discuss the yoga philosophy. And everything you face in life will fall into one category, right? So from today till tomorrow, whatever you struggle with, you can put it in one category, right? Which one is your suffering falling into? So this is very beneficial one, because there is suffering and we can't do anything about it. So let's just play with it, right? So one thing is that if suffering is bound to be there, let me just take a little bit fun out of that thing. So one thing is that, and other thing is, as soon as you categorize this, you are bound to feel a sense of detachment from your own soul, right? So one thing is fun because something should be done for fun, but other very deep reason behind it is that as soon as you categorize, you will see this change within yourself where you are able to detach from that in just for a few seconds. When you are putting it into that box, you will detach from that. You will give that thought process a pause, right? Which is very important, right? So three types of sufferings. These are three types of sufferings which have been mentioned. They are called tapatre. T-A-P-A. Yeah. So tapatre. So Tapatrayas. Right. So three forms of sufferings. First one is Adi Bhautik. ABHIBHAUPIKA. Adi Bhautik. Right. So this is the suffering that we face in the physical realm, like suppose the physical world around me is causing me some form of suffering, right? So suppose there is disease on the body, right? There is disease. I have maybe I have some knee issue, right? So this knee issue, this is a part of my physical reality, right? And it's showing up on my body. So basically something which is a part of the physical reality, which is caused by the physical reality around. So getting into a conflict with someone, can be an example. So this is more of physical suffering, I can say, where examples like disease or being in a conflict with someone, or maybe something happened and it uh, uh, led to some suffering on a physical level for you. So these things, are considered to be the Adi Bhautik Dukh. Bhautik means this world, right? So Bhautik, Adi Bhautik Dukh, when we are talking about them, so physical world, whatever the sufferings are caused to us, maybe pollution, right? Pollution is happening all around us, so it's causing some sort of suffering to us on a mental, on a physical level. So all of these sufferings which are caused due to my environment are basically going to come into the Adi Bhautik Dukh, right? Then the next one that we have is Adi Devik. Adidevik. Adi Devik. Right? So this is like more of a suffering that is caused because of the extrasensory world. So one is this physical realm which I can see, observe, right, interact with, right? But then there is a realm above this realm, right? And when suffering is caused because of that, like nature. So nature is totally out of my control, right? So if there is going to be an earthquake, there is nothing I can do. It's going to cause suffering to me, but it is from a factor which is totally, from another realm, I can say, yeah, that thing cannot be controlled at all, right? So, occurrences like natural calamities, even like COVID coming in, with COVID coming in, nobody has control, right? It is a way in which, nature, just got angry with us, what are you doing, right? And, there is this spread of that disease that is taking place, which, nobody is able to actually control that thing, right? And even, planetary movements, right? So if you are familiar with astrology, you would know that, the movement of planets, they have an impact on the energy uh, over here, right? So, if, and even, the phases of the moon, this is very easy to observe. So apart from all the other planetary things, you can just come to the moon and you will see as the phases of the moon change, our emotions change as well. If you haven't observed this till now, now start keeping it back, right? As the moon, for us, when the phase of the moon changes, there are some things that change our emotional, our bodily changes are taking place along with that. So these factors which are totally out of your control, but still they influence you, right? I cannot go and ask a planet to not revolve, right? Or to go in like the opposite direction or to do something else, right? But all of these things are having a huge impact on us, right? And sometimes, you will see there is no physical cause that you can take out of something, but there is still some disturbance that is being caused within you. So those disturbances are not caused because of the physical reality. There is something above that which is causing that suffering, and that is your adibhautic or extrasensory suffering that is caused to us as human beings, right? And let me just finish the third one, then if there are any doubts, first I'll take doubts. So third one is your adhyatmik. ADHYATMA, adhyatmik, right? So when we talk of adhyatmik, this is like internal, right? So, you will, if you meet patients of depression or anxiety, you very well live among those people, right? Maybe your circumstance and that person's circumstance is just the same, right? But they have been diagnosed with depression or they have been diagnosed with anxiety, right? So this thing, you know, as human beings, we have this power to, understand and decipher things, right? But if not controlled, they can lead to a lot of mental disorders, right? Why? Because we are causing our own suffering. So two people are existing in the same type of environment, but they have completely different reaction to the same environment. It is something like that because of how they process things and who they are, right? How they have trained their mind, more like how they have trained their mind, right? So this is the internal suffering that despite being in the same situation, everybody will have a different reaction. And the reaction you will have can cause you some amount of suffering. And that suffering is the adhyatmic dukh, right? Like, feeling like loneliness, depression, anxiety, all the psychological disorders that exist, the mental disorders that exist, they are because of this reason only, this internal suffering that we cause to ourselves, right? Nobody in your life makes you feel low. You feel low, right? And sometimes you will see you are just sitting alone and you feel so content and fulfilled, right? So, and sometimes you are in between so many people and you feel lonely, right? So there is some internal suffering that we constantly cause our own selves. So that one is being referred to when we talk of the adhyatmic truth, right? So all the sufferings that you go through your entire day or entire years or periods of your life can actually be categorized in either one of these three categories, right? So start playing with it because, like I said, suffering is a reality of life. So there is not much that you can change about that. You can work towards liberating your own self. So in that work, you can take some fun also. Yogi enjoys everything and participates in everything. So you can also definitely create a game out of this and categorize your suffering. Next time you feel very irritated or angry, just uh, this sudden awareness, if it comes in, then it's going to help you to detach from your own situation of suffering, right? So any doubts in this so far? Any doubts in anything? If there's no doubt, you can just give a thumbs up, right?
I have a question. So this third one, Adya, how do you pronounce it? Can you please tell me again?
Adhyatmic, the third one?
Yes, Adhyatmic. So it's like loneliness, depression, yeah? We are causing mostly to ourselves, but what about somebody else causing you?
What about?
About somebody else causing me some sadness, yes, some unhappiness. Is it external factor or is it the internal one? Because it is me who is feeling sad, yeah?
See, so I'll give you a very common example of this. So sometimes, in suppose a certain place an earthquake comes, right? So this is caused by some force that is totally out of your control, right? So this is causing suffering to you in your physical reality, right? But you are seeing the origin. One thing is from where that suffering is coming, you are seeing that origin, right? So it's coming from something that was totally out of your control. First thing is this when earthquake happens. But then again, you can cause another level of suffering in this where, all the destruction that came up, how you deal with that. So some people, they have really hard life, a very hard childhood or a very hard life. But because of how they train themselves and deal with it, they are either able to move ahead in their life or they fall behind, right? So of course, when we talk of these things, it comes as a category, because we are constantly interpreting things. But then, like I gave you this example, there is a clear distinction that you can draw. One thing was something happened, right? So that helped you to categorize that it is an extrasensory event that occurred, right? But then you start giving a mental reaction to it. So whatever reaction you give, if you give a negative reaction, then come into, then it's a mixture of both the substance, because one thing happened and then you gave a mental reaction to it, right? So we are constantly in the state where we are giving mental reactions. For now, at least we are in this state. So one portion of it will be classified as that, and the other portion where now you are causing, so earthquake happened, all the destruction that had to take place happened, but you are still stuck on that. Again and again, your mind goes back, maybe 10 years pass and you are still like, when that thing happened, and you feel that pain, right? So that is you causing yourself that suffering. And then that thing has happened, it has gone, right? But you are constantly creating that reaction in the mind. Yeah.
So in a sense, I can have a control over it, yeah, because I can interpret it on a certain level, not go deeper, like.
See, if you talk to patients of depression or anxiety, I don't think they have control, right? They work towards it, towards healing themselves out of it. But I don't think, nobody wants to fall in depression, do we? But we do end up falling into the category of depression or anxiety. If we had so much control over these things, maybe most of us wouldn't face things like loneliness. So I wouldn't say it's a control thing that we are talking about, what we have control over or what we don't have control over. We are mostly talking about where it is originating from, one thing. And second of all, of course, it comes to the way in which you are perceiving it also. So are we leaving it behind where it happened, or are we, if we carry it with us, like I told you, you can be angry or stressed or depressed about something which happened years ago. If you're carrying it with you, the training of the mind is such, then it is, you are causing yourself that suffering. That thing is no more causing you that suffering.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks.
Any other doubts from this categorization? Then I'll move on. All right. Oh, great. So, yeah, so this was the first sub part of your psychological reason. Let me just see. It's almost done. So I'll just touch up upon the second portion, then mythological we will discuss tomorrow. Okay. So the second thing that is there, one is Sukravati Dukh Nivritti, right? Second thing is that, curiosity. Now this is a very human tendency. We are very curious about everything we come across. We encounter something new, we become very curious. And when I introduced philosophy to you guys, I touched upon this thing. We are curious beings, right? We always remain curious about whatever is happening. And when this curiosity, it went to a deeper level, right? Beyond just surviving, it went to a deeper level of who I am. This question came up, or what is my purpose? A lot of people question this thing. I would have been here for some purpose, right? So when these deeper questions started to arise in the human mind, right? So they started looking for a process which could help them answer this thing, trying to figure out what they are meant to do, or why they are existing, or who they actually are. We don't know who we are. We try to, constantly analyze who somebody else is. But that analysis is never given a different direction of trying to understand who we are. because it's a very, overwhelming question, right? Once you start focusing on it, you feel very overwhelmed because there is no direct answer to this question, right? We are all still figuring out as we live our lives, we get to know ourselves, our preferences, our likes, dislikes, much more, right? As we age, right? But still there was this, deep desire to understand oneself. And when you get to this understanding of your own self, then you get to an understanding, of how you can contribute, right? So that forms the purpose. When you ask this question, what is my purpose? So when you gain a detailed understanding of yourself, then you can work towards, sharing your talents, or your abilities with the world, right? And that will count as your purpose, which you will do that because you exist, right? So when these questions were being asked, so there was such a deep curiosity. So, the philosophers, the yogis, they wanted to understand each and everything, our own nature, our existence, is it temporary? Are we just like, we just there's some network issue that happened. So let me just complete what I was saying, because I think network is still a little bit unstable right now. So, this curiosity when it arose, where we wanted to answer much deeper questions than, just the basic survival questions of where we will get shelter or how we will get food, right? When the higher perception of the mind was engaged, then these questions arose. And yoga is a process which will take you from whatever you can observe to a place where what you are trying to observe actually cannot be seen through the eyes, right? So yoga is that process which will take you from whatever where you are currently, however you can observe, to a place where it will enhance your observational powers, right? So now you are able to observe something that you were looking for an answer, and that answer could not be, given in the physical terms, right? Could not be seen, could not be heard, right? Or could not be, you could not smell it or taste it, right? But it is the higher faculty of the mind which can catch that answer. And through the process of yoga, you work on developing that higher faculty of the mind, so that all these questions that you have out of a sense of curiosity, you have these questions, you can answer them. Nobody else will answer these for you. The best thing about the yoga process is that you will answer your questions. Nobody else will come you and give you logic or give you lectures, right? You hold the key. You hold your own answers. And yoga will put you through this process where you are able to, get to those answers yourself. It will empower you in that manner, right? So this is the second reason which comes under the psychological reasons, right? And tomorrow we are going to discuss the mythological reasons, right, for the origination of yoga. As it is already time and you have your therapy class next, I will take doubts tomorrow only if there are any doubts related to this. So just note down your doubts and just keep them till tomorrow. And for today, your homework or your activities that you observe your own suffering and try to categorize it, right? So let's end today's session. Yeah, I'll just simply end with Om Shanti. So Om Shanti to everyone who is present here. And I will see you in the afternoon for your pranayam class. And thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.